Hello, everyone. Did you know that wait times for immigration application processing have doubled in the last 2 years? Most people involved in the legal immigration field have seen this for all of the paperwork they submit for their clients. And recently, USCIS changed their policies and procedure for in-person interviews. And we were hoping
We're hoping. Everyone's hoping.
we're still hoping that this would mean the process would be faster. But sadly, this is not what happened. And today I talk about what has changed and how long you can expect to be at USCIS in Atlanta for your naturalization interview. My name is Raluca Hanea. As an attorney, I do work in the areas of immigration, estate planning, and family law for my clients. Nina Clear, my marketing and office manager, is here with me. And all of your likes, comments, and shares help others to see our videos. So thank you very much for them.
We want to make clear for people that they are aware that this information is for naturalization interviews only. We don't have other information about other interviews right now, but when we do, we'll be sure to let them know.
That's right. Also, I want people to know this is what you can expect in the Atlanta office only, as I have not been with a client in a different office for several years. If you have been to an interview in a different office, we would love if you would share your experience so that others might benefit from that information. On a side note, I can tell you that most of my clients who have gone in for biometric appointments in Atlanta recently have said that they were processed very quickly. However, I did have one client who didn't follow my instructions and he didn't bring the hard copy of the biometric appointment letters with them. And they thought they could use their phone to show the appointment letter, but you cannot do this. And you must print out a hard copy and take it with you along with your ID. So that way you are allowed in the door.
Okay. So will you tell us what your experience was like for naturalization interviews before these recent changes?
Yes, when I attended interviews with clients previously, I would tell them to expect to be there for about an hour. That included wait time, biometrics testing, and also going to the interview.
And has that changed with the new procedures?
Unfortunately, it has. We have seen that you may need to plan to be at USCIS right now for an entire day.
Okay, tell me why that is.
Before you go in, you have to wait to be called to your interview, and sometimes that can be over an hour.
And that was before this change happened, right?
Yes, before, yes. And you would have to wait so you would wait to be called to your interview, and then you would have your interview that can take about 50 minutes or longer. It was usually about 30-45 minutes, and every part of the process was handled by one single officer. But now they had divided this process into 3 separate processes with 3 different officers.
Okay, can you tell us about each of them, 1, 2, and 3?
Sure. The first one is to verify your information, and there are 11 stations about 4 feet apart, similar to a bank setup. The officer will ask if anything has changed, and they will verify they have the correct information on your application and take your fingerprints and a photo.
And you said you were concerned about the setup when we were talking about it. You said that was concerning to you. Can you explain why that is?
Yes, there is no privacy when these questions are asked or answered. So if you're asked to say your social security number, anyone around you could hear you.
Do you have any suggestions for people so they can protect their information?
I would recommend that you write down your response. So you have to have a paper with you. And if things are different, I would only, if nothing has changed, I would just confirm by saying yes rather than stating private information if you can.
Okay. And then what is the second part of the procedure?
That is the exam.
And you mentioned that this is done by a second officer, right?
That's right. This still happens in the customer service area. A second officer will ask you questions and you answer them. And the English examination is done on a tablet at the station.
And how is that done?
The tablet is attached to the area and a sentence appears and the applicant must read it out loud, and then a second screen appears and the applicant must write a sentence in English. And remember, for this part of the test, you must read and write 1 out of 3 sentences correctly in English.
And now there also is a third part of the process.
Yes, finally is the part that we were used to. So this is done upstairs in a private room with the USCIS officer.
And what happens at that stage?
The officer will review any changes that you may have made in the step 1. They will collect any documents you were asked to bring, and they will go through each yes and no questions that you answer on your application. And they will also ask any questions that might be a concern, like providing you have a bona fide marriage, or as we discussed in our interview the other day, any type of controlled substance use or work in that area.
And how long does that take?
The interview itself can be relatively fast depending on the officer. But remember, this officer is the one who determines the approval or denial of your application. But the wait before this step can be as fast as 2 minutes or as long as 3 hours.
And I know in the past, we have gotten letters from USCIS, and you've had 2 clients, and they schedule them on the same time,
yes,
on the same day.
Yes.
And then we've had to scramble to figure out, how can you be with 2 clients on the same time and at the same day, right?
Yes, and in 2 different rooms with 2 different officers.
And so now what's going to happen, right? I mean,
well, this is another problem with this new system. Previously, USCIS worked with attorneys.
So if you went in, I think you went in just like last month or the month before, and you had 2 at the same time.
Yes.
And they let you do one first and then the other.
Yes, so they were waiting for me to have the other. But this time, so previously USCIS worked with the attorneys who had several clients on the same day and the same time, and they were allowing the attorneys to reschedule or having the interviews be staggered. But they are no longer doing that. Actually, USCIS stopped working with attorneys pretty much on all the stages. They are requesting people to sign a waiver saying that they don't want to have an attorney at the interview, or they're asking them to reschedule their interviews. And we know people who have had to reschedule it, and it has taken them any other, additional months to go back for an interview.
Okay, so you also said that there's a concern. So just to reiterate your concerns about this new process is that there's the privacy issue at the beginning, and then if somebody would have adequate representation, because they have the right to have an attorney there.
Sure, yes.
But if you're scheduling an attorney with, you had 2 clients at the same time, but say you have 5 clients at the same time,
Yes.
So they don't have adequate representation. Is there anything else about this new setup that concerns you?
It is also concerning that this is making the whole process longer for the applicants. The area where the step 1 and 2 take place is a small area and it's cramped. And if you go with your spouse or with your attorney and plus an interpreter, it is practically impossible to fit everyone in that area, which is a waiting room about 30 people for about 30 people usually, which causes now some people to have to stand and wait for long periods of time. So you can imagine how it is if they also bring their children.
So you have people standing and waiting, and then people talking.
Yes.
At these 11 stations in a room that fits 30 people.
Exactly. So it makes it difficult to hear in a small cramped space like that filled with many people, especially for someone who speaks English as a second language. So also imagine you are taking a test that determines your ability to become a U.S. citizen in a loud area with many distractions. Most test-taking areas are quiet and allow you to focus on the test without distraction, but this is impossible now.
And I know that the application asks if you need reasonable accommodations for a disability. So is it possible to request a private room to take the test?
Well, this is one option you would need to explore with your legal counsel, but if you don't have a disability,
like under the law, like
they are not
right.
under the law, exactly, you will not be able to ask.
So it doesn't really sound like there's any solutions, or this is not a better process.
No.
Than it has been in the past.
It seems like it is a continued effort to make a slow, frustrating process even more slow and frustrating. And we will see if any immigration rights organizations will try to make changes to the courts. But for now, I hope that this video can help you be prepared for what is a concerning situation for all of us in the immigration field. Thank you again for all your likes and comments, and we are always here to help. If you have questions, call us. Have a great weekend.